Ladies and gentlemen, we have our next practitioners chat, which will focus on the topic solving real-time challenges with AI. Now, AI systems can solve many complex problems from the edge to the cloud. This session discusses how business can unleash or harness the power of AI to solve real-time problems for value creation. Our speakers for this session are Akanksha Balani, Regional Alliance Head, AWS, APAC and Japan, Intel. Anishk Agiwal, Head Service Lines, India, South Asia, WWPS, Amazon Internet Services Private Limited. Vikas Bakshi, Senior Vice President, Global Alliances and India Hunting Business Head, Cloud4C. Chairing the session is Rostov Ravana, Chairman and CEO, Alpha Hive Inc. At Alpha Hive, Rostov works with a passionate and expert team to build solutions using new technology to help global enterprises mitigate and manage their cyber security risks. Pleasure to have you here with us, Rostov. I'd like to request you to take this session forward.
Welcome. This promises to be a very interesting and exciting session. I'd like to start by thanking Justin and the entire NASSCOM team for pulling all of us together. We all, I'm sure, have multiple things to do, but when NASSCOM calls us, difficult to say no, because this is a way for all of us to give back to practitioners, give back to organizations who are embarking on technology transformation journeys. With that, I'd like to invite my three panel members to introduce themselves. We have three very experienced, very knowledgeable practitioners in the technology domain. Maybe I'll start with you, Akanksha. Why don't you go first?
Thanks, Rosto, and really excited to be here. As Rosto mentioned, I'm Akanksha Balani. I lead the Alliance for AWS at Intel for the region of APJ. As part of my role, my real, I would say, passion is to try and see how through technology we can solve our customers' as well as the citizens' business as well as technology challenges with the use of our partnerships and our collaborations, like all the other esteemed panels on the discussion here today. So really excited to be here. You do want me to say something funny also about myself, Rosto?
Yes, please. A fun fact that otherwise audience would have never got to know about you.
Okay, so in this amazing COVID world, which makes sure that they are restraining us from getting out of the house at the levels that we used to earlier. My favorite passion is in life is Japanese food. So I love food, but as part of the segment in that, it's definitely Japanese food and it's sushi. And because we're stuck in this COVID world, I don't really get access to the best sushi that I would have liked to. So as of the last couple of weeks, I've been trying to make sushi. Not been doing very great, but hopefully in the next, thanks to technology and the online YouTube and DIY videos, I hope that I'll get there fast. So if anybody wants to get access to the best known methods of learning and developing and making sushi really cool, they can also reach out to me outside of wanting to know more about Intel in the cloud.
Wonderful. I'm sure a few of us would take you up on that. I'm a foodie myself as well. Thank you, Akanksha. Kanishka, could I invite you to go next?
Oh, thanks, Rostov. Thank you, NASSCOM, for bringing us together. Always a pleasure to be at the NASSCOM forums. And I hope that everybody listening in is keeping safe. Your family and your loved ones are doing well. I know the second wave was very brutal, but hopefully, all of us have come out okay. And if not, then let the strength be with you as you come across any of these crises. In fact, I'm going to start off with picking up on that thread, right, which is Akanksha mentioned. And COVID, well, Akanksha is food. I'll go on the other extreme. I was more of, I used to be a professional swimmer at some point in my previous life. And one of the things that I do, irrespective whether it's snowing or it's 60 degree in like a Dubai or a Jeddah or any of those places, is swim every day in the morning. And the first things that actually went down during COVID were the pools. The pools are still open. They were open for a little bit of time in between, and we made the best use of it. My wife and I both are swimmers, so we made the best use of it. And I'm just absolutely looking back to getting back to the pool. And hopefully, there's a standing joke in my apartment. We have a pool, and obviously nobody's getting into it because of COVID. So it's almost like a private pool for my wife and myself to just go ahead and have a swim. Guys, the little side chat aside, I lead up the entire service lines here at Amazon Web Services for India, South Asia, primarily looking after the public sector, which is all of our education, central and state local government portfolio. So, and part of our service lines is also a lot of deep tech, of which AI and ML turn out to be one of the largest drivers in the way we can drive impact for the society. And we'll talk more about this over a course of time. I've been in as a machine learning practitioner as well as machine learning. I used to head up a number of machine learning specific verticals across multiple organizations. So yeah, been here for a little more than a decade, driving up ML. Back to you, Rustam.
Thank you, Kanishka. Vikas,
hey, hi.
Of the tail enders.
Absolutely, and it's always hard to be the tail ender, right? This was right, but yeah, thanks, Rostov, for inviting me in, and NASSCOM, thanks for bringing us all together in. You know what? I have a different version of what both Kanishka and Akansha spoke about. I love sleep. I sleep tremendously because I need to start working that more extra hours. There's no excuse to not taking the sleep, right? So, yeah. So I have a different taste of the COVID pieces of it. My work life has suddenly become a bit more than what it used to be. So hopefully things can be a lot better once we start mellowing down, right? So that's the nice part of what I would like to see. To introduce myself, this is Vikas Bakshi here. As also mentioned, I draw 2 charters within Cloud4C. Cloud4C as an organization is more of a cloud services provider, not a provider, as a services partner. I take 2 charters, as I mentioned. One is I drive the India business to drive conversations of cloud transformation, cloud adoption by various customers on multiple cloud environments. That's one charter that I drive, which cuts across the enterprise segment, the government sector. We also look at both the indirect and direct way working through with the cloud service partners or the SI partners or ISP. So we have a very strategic intent on how we drive that business from a business perspective. The second charter I drive within Cloud4C is I manage the various partnerships. That's where I guess we working with Akansha is a lot more has been in terms of how do I really collaborate to see on what customers want to adopt, what challenges are they facing, can we overcome those challenges to see how we can help them on their transformation path, right? And it could be in various segments of transformation, right? And that's the second charter I drive. So I drive a whole lot of alliances across CSPs and OEMs and the various SI and ISP partners. So that's the second last. There's a bit of a larger charter that I carry. So thank you so much, Rostov, for inviting me here.
Wonderful, wonderful. I won't introduce myself other than to say I am Priya Chawla and the NASSCOM events team's biggest fan. And everything else I do always is smaller in comparison to the kind of exciting things that the NASSCOM events team pulls together. Coming to the theme for this event, since it's how do organizations, government departments, society, academic institutions all experience AI? Maybe I'll lead with the first question. I would love to get thoughts from all of you, which is as organizations. As your organizations work with clients and you have a vantage point where you're helping many of your clients run some of their largest programs, you're involved, you're enabling transformation of technology in your customers. Can you share with us a few examples of what clients have been able to do today using AI that they've been struggling with in the past? Previous technology could not solve those problems, and today AI is solving those problems for those clients. Walk us through 1 or 2 case studies of how your clients are using AI. I'll stick to the same cycle. Akanksha, would you like to go first? Akanksha, you're on mute.
Yep, that happens. That's technology for us. Sure, Rusto, happy to go first. I think it's a very valuable and a very current question that you've asked about how can we really see how a technology like AI is actually helping make industries, segments, as well as us in the country live better and be more productive and more efficient. And I'd just like to take a quick step back and really talk about the metamorphosis of how we've got here and the reason why we're driving these types of conversations with our customers. If you look at the way in which, data has exploded in the world today, where we've got 50 billion devices and 500 billion sensors that are smartly connected over the internet today. People's devices, personal devices, from our kids to our parents to everybody that we speak to, are completely connected. 40% of this is actually being done on machines. So when we're looking at that type of data that we have available in our hands to actually drive the right type of insights for customers with a property that they already have, is really what drives that conversation for our customers. When a customer in a finance segment or in a manufacturing segment, all of them, what they really want us to do when we're having conversations with them is to make sure that they are more competitive, make sure that they're building the best products, making sure that they have the most motivated task force that is going to get them to the next level of staying current in the industry. So when we work with, financial institutions, they want to say, how can we make sure credit card fraud is mitigated with the help of all this data that they have available with them, with a technology like AI? When we look at manufacturing, how are they going to build better products that are really resonating with the customer need? The types of cars, autonomous vehicles, for example, all of that is driven by technology. What we want to try to do is fix the traffic situation in India, which hopefully that, will be there one day. It's not something that we're going to be able to manage today. Maybe COVID did help in a little way. But, driving that type of data into AI and that technology is something that our customers have really, advanced in their perspectives of what technology can do for them, seeing how this is actually impacting. Another segment that we work very closely is in healthcare, and this is, not only with Vikas's from Cloud4C's help, but also with Kanishka and AWS's help. We've also seen how blindness can be mitigated with the help of the analytics and the models that are built together for AI to make sure that, we can help identify people that could potentially get blind because of diabetic retinopathy, for example, much faster. So instead of 5,000 people turning blind because of this on a daily basis, we bring it down with the use of technology to 15 people. And that itself is amazing impact. It's the same kind of, across industry, it's different, but I think every segment of every customer that has data today has the capability of adopting AI and making that change for them in their industry and organization. Intel, AWS, as well as Cloud4C are obviously there to help them see those experiences from our worldwide as well as our global and our regional lens, but also get them to be most relevant for our country.
Wonderful. Great examples, Akanksha. Helping a bank reduces credit card fraud is one thing, and it's obviously very important and critical. But the fact that, 4,985 people, lesser people, go blind because something that collectively all of us as an industry have bought technology to solve that problem truly means how this technology can touch people at an individual level. Great examples. Thank you for that. Coming next to you, Kanishka. In some senses, you have a very exciting vantage point, right? Both from the background you bring and being a practitioner of some of these technologies, etc. And you probably represent one of the, definitely probably the largest cloud provider, one of the most innovative companies on AI, some of the most cutting edge kind of technologies come out of your organization. What's been your experience, with this question?
Sure. So in fact, I'll build on what Akanksha was mentioning on that last piece, right? Where we're driving impact at the base. So there are a number of enterprise organizations that are today deploying AI for a number of activities, right? So whether it's around automation, whether it's around workflow management, whether it is around just looking at documents and extracting information and making sense of those information, which is comprehending what that information is. There's plenty of those use cases. And I'm sure they've been spoken by multiple people across several panels that we've been a part of. But more importantly, I think at the base, how are you bringing AI, and is it actually making an impact? Is it going to change and transform the life of that common citizen, of the person who actually doesn't have access to internet, probably has very touch and go feel on technology? I'll give you a couple of examples. With Vadvani, for example, right? We're working on a number of things where they're really impacting at a grassroots level. If you know how typical infants are weighed by these ASHA workers, and ASHA workers generally go in house to house. They have a spring balance. It's a weighing scale, but a spring balance on which precariously a baby is put on it. And think of this as a baby which is about 2 months, 3 months, maybe 6 months old, and the baby is going to be moving around. So it's a very dangerous way to actually weigh the baby. And you weigh the baby, and WHO says that this is going to be at least 2.5 kgs, because if it's below that, there is a risk of malnutrition, and if it's above that, then you're okay. You'll be amazed by the data that generally comes off this, right? Most children are 2.5 kgs, and there is a reason. You know now the reason that it is, because most of them end up writing a 2.5 because they're essentially not doing this activity, or they're doing this activity because they have to tick a box. What Vadvani went ahead and did was actually put out an ML model, which took a 3D image of a baby. So you just had the ASHA worker, regular feature phone. They could go ahead, take a picture of the baby. There's a very clear ratio of water to body, and they were able to model the baby in a way to get to almost a near accurate weight of the baby. So once the baby's picture was taken, it was modeled out, and you got a near accurate weight, which is directly uploaded onto the database. And they ran this as a successful pilot in a number of districts in Maharashtra. And that, I think, is a great way of how simple use of technology can actually start making a massive impact. And think of what it could do on the entire nutrition program, on the vaccination program, on immediate intervention for maternal health care, for infanticide, infant healthcare as well. And these are areas where we would want to focus on. And similarly, they went on to the agri space, where they came out with a very topical problem. They just said that, look, I'm finding an issue with cotton crops, and there is a pest which is called the pink bollworm. And the pink bollworm would go ahead and attack these crops. But you know, the unique property of the pink bollworm is, if it went too much, it was bad for the crop. If it went too little, it was again bad for the crop. So it was required for a little bit of pollination of the crop, but not more that it started eating the crop. And the way farmers usually did was, they used to take a sticky paper, run it past the crops, and then count the number of insects they had captured on the paper. And that is a very tedious exercise, as opposed to how about I did the same thing and then took a picture of it, and it would count for that square centimeter, how many worms did you actually catch, and it'll tell you if you had it intact or not. And why I'm making these two examples is, this is where we're seeing a large impact of AI now coming. This is where AI is getting real. It's no longer at the fringes. It's no longer something that is very utopian to speak about. This is happening in spaces where transitions are very easy, where it's very seamless handoff from a regular low-touch non-tech field to a very high-tech but low-touch field, right? So I think that's where we're hopefully getting there with the scale that we're seeing with cloud, and with the compute capacity that we're bringing in now. And this couldn't have been possible on an on-premise data center. It couldn't have been possible on some server sitting somewhere else. This is all now possible because it's all moving to the cloud.
Wonderful, great examples. Really brings to life for all our audience on what's possible with technology there. Because you also have I'm sure, a very interesting perspective on this whole topic, because to some extent, for example, a few years ago, I was lucky to go visit Florence, and there's obviously an enormously rich culture and history and everything else. But if you didn't have a tour guide, you will never be able to make sense of the city, make sense of the history and everything else. So if in some senses, people in Akanksha's world are the Michelangelos, and people in Kanishka's world are the Bellinis, and they create all these monuments, you are the tour guide that helps the enterprise navigate through all of these, make sense of all these technologies, going by the charter that you outlined. Help us answer this question from your perspective on what you've seen.
Absolutely great analogies, Rostov. And I love the term tour guide. I think that's the exact word. I should be talking about it to my guys as well.
I'll immediately copyright this as soon as we finish this.
Absolutely. So, Yeah, I think looking at what Kanishka spoke about some of the use cases on the healthcare side of government. Our experience of adopting AI has been over a period of time basis. What we did with customers on various sectors, we've been very, very strong on, be it manufacturing, be it banking, and be it the government side, where we did a lot of work on the infrastructure side earlier. But our customers are demanding more in terms of understanding what to do with the infrastructure we have, what do we do with information that I'm sitting on. Coming to the example that Akansha spoke about, for example, fraud management. We see a lot of banking customers of ours coming and saying, can you help us with something called, where I can do sentiment analysis of how my customers are, what are they experiencing, what are they going through, put up chatbots, put up, how can I enhance a lot of customer experience to those customers of mine. And one of the great examples that I can speak about, I think Akansha would love, is what we did with, with an hybrid cloud outpost with one of our customers. And that's for a banking customer. That a completely loyalty program for the bank is being run by this ISV, right? And they are doing a complete sentiment analysis of how people are actually now utilizing their services and rewarding those customers with the loyalty bonuses and services. Because that's the kind of analytics that we could deliver on a different environment than just being on a public cloud, right? It was a complete hybrid, public cloud, hybrid kind of a storyboarding. So banking, yes, absolutely is doing a lot of these such conversations. But we're also seeing the similar ask coming in from the retail side of because to everyone, and it's all about retaining our existing customer, be it a retail customer, be it an industrial customer, but enhancing the values, enhancing the experiences is something that each of them come and ask us for. Other stuff where we've actually invested a lot, and we actually kind of acquired a company which does a bit more of a differential version of the AI, is where we help the manufacturing customers, especially on what we call as process analytics and process AI, in terms of what we could understand the various processes they go to, how to automate those processes, and how to make life easier in terms of running the whole business that they are into, right? So basically we talk of hyper automation out there. So it's a lot of data AI and integrating that with processes which you start experiencing with customers. So it's a question of what is available at any point in time, how customers are trying to understand how it not only benefits us to bring down the cost of operations, make a lot of saving, but also how it enhances the experience, right? And the processes and the way that they want to deliver this to a customer. That's an important element which is probably changing the thought process of enterprises. And when we talk to them, we kind of hear more of that. One of the other interesting stuff that I'm seeing, I think it's more happening globally, but I'm seeing a bit more of the other stuff coming in is on with automobile companies talking of connected cars, talking of how driving is happening, whether you're putting the handbrakes on, and where are you at any point of time, or a transportation business to see what kind of a vehicle tracking mechanisms can you run, right? Where is it at this point in time? Giving the live information back to customers, because it's all about getting the information flow, right? Again, it's all about customer experience. But a few use cases from the industry side. On the government side, I think there's an extensive play that I absolutely see. I think Kanishka spoke about healthcare. We are seeing an absolutely great adoption of AI coming into the healthcare, especially with COVID. I think they've kind of extended that piece a bit more. Various cloud environments, yes. So I've seen healthcare, revenue, commerce, ministry. They're having a lot of conversations, say land records, revenue department, to be more precise per se. So whether it's central government, the PSUs, the state government have their own adoption of cloud that they're all trying to come across and see how we can help them on the journey. And to see the government teams getting a bit more nimble is pretty exciting, because they normally have been the last laggards in terms of adopting cloud, right? We've been very, very comfortable with the way it used to run. Other stuff which I think they've been doing well, and we're seeing a lot of traction that possibly can be enhanced further, is with all the safe cities with Nirbhaya happening, the Nirbhaya funding that happened, we're seeing a lot of safe cities and smart cities coming up, right? Which means a lot of video analytics, a lot of integration with various departments within the government. How can we really make it that much more interesting? So that's a huge stuff that play that can be really delivered in terms of really, enhancing, utilizing AI to deliver experience, deliver information flow back to various departments so that they can all collaborate. That's the whole idea, right? In terms of what we can do. So there's various levels of it. I just thought to bring in a few, so that gives you a very strong perspective. We see a lot of adoption across enterprise and government, but I think it's exciting time to see how we can really enhance the value, true value, not to only our customers, but also the customer's customer.
Understood. Understood. All of you make fantastic points. In some senses, I have a tough job because there's a wealth of experience with each of you, and I have to extract as much of it and in as short a time as possible, so the audience gets the maximum benefit of it there. So let me pose the next question to you and request you to see if you can give me very quick, a few bullet point kind of an answers. So my question is as follows. Imagine there are two personas of organizations listening to this session. One is somebody who has not yet started a AI journey, and so they haven't yet experienced AI. And the second persona is somebody who's started an AI journey but has been stuck in between for some reason. For each of these personas, can you give us one or two suggestions on what can be done, how do they get started, or how do they resolve the issues that they have, and any resources that you know of which could be useful for them, either, for example, white papers, public blogs, anything, any resources that you can point them to that they can quickly use to help them with their where they are at the moment. Maybe reverse the cycle this time. Vikas, would you like to go first?
Absolutely. I think great question. I think some of the stuff that if you look at different set of customers, some of them were adopted, some of them were looking to adopt. Some of the consideration that I think people who want to see, or some mistakes that we obviously observe when people are adopting data analytics and per se, is how do we really determine the right data set of how to run the whole businesses, how to really use AI to have the data sets being utilized better. Right? That's one stuff that we see in terms of determining the right data sets. Second thing that we see is when there is a data, there's a lot of storage that comes in as far as data is concerned. Having the right kind of data storage to define the data and the scalability that comes in with the kind of enhancement of bringing in AI to data is something that a lot of customers tend to make mistakes in terms of how to really do that stuff, and that probably also has an impairment in terms of how you really put that through. Also, reason being that a lot of data is, like you rightly said earlier, is about some of them being unstructured, not understood well, taking it on old toto, or really refining the kind of data that exists. What is the right data that can be ingested, scrubbed in, and then utilizing the data effectively, how well to better utilize data and optimize. That's a kind of decision that needs to be understood. Second is, I think, when you talk of, I'm more coming from an infrastructure perspective also, right? Third perspective that I would like to bring in is, with, I think will warm the heart of Kanishka, for example, is a lot of processors that you need to put from an infrastructure perspective, right? We talk of CPUs, we talk of GPUs. Now, when you talk of AI, the data and the processing time that is required and the speed and agility that is required to deliver is very important, right? So customers tend to understand, need to understand what is it that they really need, how important it is to provide the data as fast as possible on a real-time basis to customers. That's a third element which needs to be understood. Now, this can get interlinked with, say, not only having the infrastructure, but also having the right networks, right? Because this has to get communicated to probably people across various networks and places where they are accessing to. So defining the right set of data, refining the right set of storage, the right set of infrastructure, and refining the right set of security, possibly to also define once you are on network, you are getting outside the particular secure environment. So these are the few stuff that a lot of customers of ours need to understand. In terms of building a bit more in depth in terms of how to identify the kind of data you need to work on, kind of AI that you need to implement to deliver those stuff, there are multiple platforms, multiple use cases, multiple environments that every work group tend to use. It's a question of what is it that they're working on, but integrating all of them to bring it as part of an integrated effort from an IT team's perspective to bring that true sense of integration is something that needs to be established. I think that's one challenge that a lot of organizations face, because they end up having shadow IT with every user group. And that defeats the whole purpose of AI, because if you can really integrate and bring a single storage and a processing piece to enable every of these elements, that can have a huge play in terms of what one can provide across to customers. So that's what I feel can be done better, and probably be adhered to or thought about before you take a decision in terms of how to leverage data and AI.
Understood. Great points. Kanishka, over to you. And if you could also spend maybe like a few seconds to point people to how to kind of guides so that they can at least chart their journey or restart their journey if they've not yet started their journey, that it will be useful.
So I think, in fact, I'll look at the first persona, which is assuming somebody has zero knowledge about ML or wants to get on the journey of ML. Sometime last year, and this is, if I'm not mistaken, it was the 15th of August or near about that time, when NASSCOM got together a number of us from the industry to work with the Atal Innovation Labs, the Atal Innovation Mission, AIM, and we put out a complete AI step-up module, and this was essentially for K-12 students. But I still think, even me being a practitioner, as I look at it, I think that's a great guide for anybody to start their ML journey. So sometime back, NASSCOM had released the AI module itself. And this is a self-paced course that anybody can pick up and start reading through. And we then built it up with a step-up module, which you can again pick it up. It's available on the Niti Aayog Atal Innovation Mission website. So under the Atal Tinkering Labs, you will find some of these course material that you can directly pick up. And these are for people who are starting off on the journey. For the more advanced ones, as they're moving on their journey, I would strongly recommend that they get onto a certification path. It helps bring a lot more rigor. It brings more clarity in the way you want to execute this, especially on the cloud, because the entire infrastructure and the way you deploy instances, right? I mean, take a look at the way you want to, on the AWS cloud infrastructure, if you wanted to do an EC2, which is our basically compute instance, then which one would you use that is more suited for graphics versus machine learning versus data annotation versus labeling, and so on and so forth, right? When you go through this entire certification path, so we've got the AWS specialty certification, and I'm sure there are a couple of other industry certifications as well, but those are the path that somebody should take in to get a more structured learning as opposed to a bit of a hands-on learning. So while the projects can give you hands-on learning, we are getting to a point where cost escalations on these projects can be immense if you have not factored in the right set of infrastructure to be deployed, the right way of scaling it up or down. And if you went on a happy-go-lucky approach, then you could actually end up burning a massive hole before you even realized it 2 or 3 months later, because just about the amount of, as Vikas was mentioning, the data ingestion can be so large that it can be pretty cost prohibitive.
Great, great. Very valid inputs, Kanishka. Akanksha, what are your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, I think first let's touch on the skilling component. It's very topical again, Rusto, because as of yesterday, along with the Ministry of Education, under the digital skilling and digital India mission of Prime Minister Modi, we launched AI for All. And so today, basically, we've got almost a full day worth of a course, which basically will teach different levels and different layers and different skills of people that are trying to adopt AI, how they can kick off their journey. So it's AI for all.in. It's really that simple. Of course, there's a lot of other additional academic courses that Intel offers for free for everybody that wants to try. They just went to intel.com/AI, they'll be able to get a whole lot of access. But I definitely do feel, just because I've been in this academic and the developer experience world since a very long time in my career, I do feel that if there's data analysts or data scientists or data developers, you spend your time to go to an academic institute, a university, and get that level of performance, get that level of information on how you want to take this knowledge and then go out and do internships at commercial organizations or businesses to apply how you're supposed to take advantage of this data with all of these various techniques under AI and apply it to use cases and business challenges that they want to solve for their organization. So in terms of resourcing and as Vikas also mentioned, there's a plethora, there's no dearth of AI-based courses, but I always urge the younger community of developers today that are trying to do AI to go to an academic institution and get your foundation on, and then come to us in the technology world to get them more educated on how they can apply it. Going to the question on early adopters of AI, I think what is very important, and I'm just going to keep it very short, I think that having 3 different factors in mind when you start to think about applying AI into your organization is very important. Number 1 is the availability of use cases. So when you are in a finance industry, go after the use cases that you really want to take the data that you have available for and apply it to your advantage. So the use case and focusing on identifying the use case is very key. Second, purchasing power. Do your organizations have budget for AI? Are they going to apply it and use it? Go through the effort only if you know that there is purchasing power within your organization or your industry for that specific use case for the application of AI. And number 3 is the reward. The quick reward of using AI to help that data go to insight that will help you grow as your organization or as a developer. I think that's also very important. So keeping those three factors in mind will help early adopters in AI really know where they need to go on their journey with AI. And what I also want to do, which moves to the second, practitioners of AI today, the first level is more analytics of what you want to do with AI. The second is actually driving collaboration and partnership. AI in a certain company, project, organization doesn't happen with one person. You're going to have your system analysts, to your data developers, to your programmers, to your C-level decision makers, to your IT managers that all need to be part of this decision. So building the collaboration of really identifying why you have applied or bought the solution for AI is very, very niche and very, very important. So getting that collaboration, and once you've got stuck in these certain models, as Kanishka mentioned, the use cases around AI are so many, immense. What you want to focus on is what is most performant and what is most cost effective for your organization. So sometimes you might be doing an overkill of going for alternative instances on AI and going after GPU processors when you can just use CPU processors and do the same amount of AI that you really need to do. So really driving that analysis of the cost benefit of choosing something that can help you scale across various use cases, making sure that the bottlenecks that you have on those are about latency, are about taking away latency, are about integrating scalability, are about making sure that you can build those across others so that there's an economic value of owning these AI-based educational models that you have in your organization is very important. So just keeping the analytics, the collaboration, and really the applicability of that use case in mind in your organization will really help you grow leaps and bounds. And skilling is something that needs to continue to happen, whether in the organization or as an individual. Go after all the global resources that are available on AI, but make sure that you keep making sure that you're following the latest and greatest trends. Earlier there was a myth that AI can only happen on GPUs. Today, everything is on scale. Everything is from the edge to the CPU, to the data center, to the cloud. So keeping sure that you are current and talk to collaborative industry leaders that can help you through that journey will really help you get to that next level of really making AI do your work for you.
One aspect, Rossa, if I can add, if it's okay, is I think the very important aspect of collaboration was brought out by Akansha. And one of the key users or owners of this project when it comes to AI or data is the business owners inside organizations. We spoke about IT, we spoke about data resources and other stuff, but it's ultimately being done for the business owners. And that's a change because that's about experience, right? So that's something that I think is absolutely must in terms of how we bring in synchronization within the teams to see what can be leveraged and how.
Wonderful, wonderful. All extremely valid points, and I'm sure the audience would greatly value all the comments that you made. The organizers are pointing to me that you already crossed the limit, and I'm sure the conversation can go on for a long time, but I have the necessity to bring it to a close there. And maybe I'll do that with a short story, and then I'll explain the point I wanted to make with the story as well. Many years ago, I was at a leading American educational institution, and we were just chatting about what's AI doing and so on and so forth. And they were talking about a project that they came across by a large hospital chain in the US, which is trying to say how can we use technology to reduce readmission rates. Because those of you who are familiar with the US healthcare system, if you get admitted and then you leave the hospital and then you have to get readmitted, the insurance company does not pay the hospital. So the hospital has to bear the cost of the treatment for readmission. So they were trying to see if technology can help them solve this problem and minimize readmission rates. And the model came back with a mathematically correct, but a difficult to implement solution, which came back and said, inject the patient with a fatal drug on the date of discharge and the patient won't get readmitted there. Which is mathematically correct, right? I mean, it perfectly answers the question that you asked. And the point I wanted to make with that story was, in a way, bridging, as you can see from my hairline, I've been in the industry before AI became a trend. So what continues to be relevant for the technology industry from the past to the present is that a lot of the quality of the answers you get will depend on the quality of the questions you ask. And the data that you have to answer those questions. some of those foundational fundamental lessons don't change even if you are trying to toy with new technologies like AI. With that, I'd like to thank the panel members. Very productive, very engaging, very insightful conversations. I'm looking forward to continuing this, and so that all of us learn and we pass on the benefits of our experience to more of our, more of the industry leaders, technology teams, and organizations, governments, and other bodies, who walk this path behind us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rosto. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rosto, for handling that session absolutely brilliantly. And we'd like to thank our brilliant speakers also for that amazing and candid session.